Remember that really dodgy movie from last year starring Dylan Sprouse, Beautiful Disaster? Given the type of movie this is, I'm not shocked that a sequel was released 1 year later. Disaster sounds about right. In all seriousness, didn't that movie end up with the two protagonists, Abby and Travis, getting married in Vegas? What more is there to the story? Who am I kidding? Somehow the writers of these movies are able to squeeze every last drop of drama out of a storyline. So, earlier this year, the film Beautiful Wedding was released. Given the fact that the original film was based on a sus book of the same name by an author called Jamie McGuire, I was curious as to whether this film was based on a sequel book. According to McGuire's website, Beautiful Wedding is actually the third book in the Beautiful series. Highly innovative titles, by the way. There is a second book between Beautiful Disaster and Beautiful Wedding, titled Walking Disaster. I haven't read any of the books at the time of making these reviews, so I'm not sure how these books are being adapted. For example, whether the second book is simply being ignored, or various aspects of the three books are being adapted into these movies. Because of this, I won't be referring to the books in these videos. If you have read the books, I'd love to hear your perspective. I remember actually being pleasantly surprised by the film and its ironic jabs at a subgenre of romance fiction that is known for its questionable dynamics. Can the sequel continue this trend, or will I be disappointed? Let's find out. Without further ado, on with the review.
Polos is life, 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 sleep all night and then Polos is life.
The movie begins in Mexico, and Abby and Travis are already in marriage counselling with a priest called Miguel. Oh boy, who could have seen that coming? When their counsellor asks them to start from the beginning of their relationship, they give us your typical, "this is what happened in the last movie" recap. At least the setup is somewhat original. We then cut to 6 days before this, where Shepley and Travis end up waking up in the same bed, and their partners are elsewhere in the house. All of them are very hungover. Shepley and Travis are cousins, which makes this whole situation even more awkward. The group wakes up with no memory of the previous night's shenanigans, and there's a bunch of money everywhere. Shepley also notices that the group were on TV.
I guess you won it?
Good work.
In case it wasn't already obvious, since this is Beautiful Wedding, the filmmakers give zero fucks with this film. Here, they reuse a PowerPoint-esque slideshow that also played during the credits of Beautiful Disaster. Good throwback, I guess. Abby and Travis also find out that they drunkenly got married the previous night, urging Travis to try and make some kind of romantic speech to her. This is quickly derailed when Abby responds to his overtures by projectile vomiting directly onto him, just like in the last film, because of course she does. In all fairness, this is probably due to a combination of nerves and hungoverness, but then a low-budget title card appears. Following the interesting visual, Travis gets a call from Benny, the big baddie from the last film, played by Rob Estes, who also played Ken Scott in most of the after films. I'm not sure if he was actually named in the last film. If he was, I didn't catch it. Anyways, he tells Travis that he and Abby owe him $180,000 for the illegal fight Travis was in, ending in a fire before his opponent could knock him out. He demands to see them in his office in an hour, or else, just before they get a knock at the door. The situation escalates to the point where Travis and Shepley literally resort to waterboarding this mysterious figure. Thankfully, Abby interrupts to notify them that the so-called gun was actually just a hairdryer. Yeah, nothing says deadly assassin like a guy in a hotel staff uniform. In an attempt to escape from Benny, the group flee to Mexico, explaining the setting for the intro of this film. They're greeted by Chief Officer Warrant Delroy Murphy, or Buzz, a very enthusiastic stock military type portrayed by Emmanuel Kabongo. He agrees to take them over the border for the reasonable price of 10 grand. Abby books a luxury honeymoon suite in Gatito, as, in her own words, it's her honeymoon, and Travis reluctantly agrees to it despite all of the money that they're spending. After some lovey-dovey dialogue about how much Travis loves Abby, we see our heroine come across a recent article about a bride murdering her husband on their honeymoon. Spooky, I guess? Foreshadowing, perhaps? Totally normal thing to read just after getting married, of course. When they arrive at the suite, they are greeted by a mariachi band, and their host, the exuberant Sancho, played by Stephen Bauer. Once the couples are shown to their rooms, we get inklings of our main couple getting on each other's nerves when Abby insists that Travis take numerous photos of their cute bedspread, before Travis ruins it to get onto the bed. In one of the simultaneously least romantic and goofiest scenes I've ever seen in a film like this, Travis then proceeds to do an impression of a caveman while trying to woo his wife.
You were such an Neanderthal.
Ooga!
I try to keep this channel PG-13, so I won't go over the next sequence in detail, but given that I'm even saying that, you can guess what happens next. We get a cartoon phallus in the corner like this is Year 9 biology. Why not, I suppose? This franchise threw out all semblance of composure a long time ago. At dinner, the romance is absolutely palpable when Abby hands Travis a highly decorated pros and cons list to help determine whether they should stay married or not.
I don't like it. This is like getting cancer news framed. This is a pro-con list.
Despite them getting married on a whim while incredibly intoxicated, I kind of get where Travis is coming from. Why would you even bother with all of this honeymoon stuff if you had doubts about the relationship? In another shocking display of maturity, Travis stops listening to Abby when she tries to talk to him about her late grandmother, because he's too busy worrying about missing a football game. He is unintentionally rude to her and then lies that he doesn't feel well so he can leave.
I'm about to beat this bitch up.
No wonder they're in marriage counselling 6 days in. Travis tries to make it up to Abby by planning an extremely romantic couple of days, which we see through an 80s style montage. The group plays various party games, including charades, and we learn that America is freakishly good at it, similarly to how Abby is a poker prodigy. We also learn that Abby has always wanted to live in Paris, and that Travis wants to pursue criminal justice as a career. Something that they think isn't compatible for some reason. He could just specialise in French law. They end up making up in an extremely blue pool, and the narrator warns us that despite everything looking great on the surface, the worst is yet to come. I can imagine. They haven't actually dealt with any of their issues. In the morning, Travis wakes up alone and finds Abby hanging out with Miguel, played by Alex Iono. Travis immediately becomes jealous and, in his haste, accidentally flashes the pair when he loses his towel. While on a trip to the beach, the group loses sight of America and asks some of the locals if they've seen her. The women seem to take a liking to Travis and proceed to disrobe and flirt with him, despite Abby being right there. Yeah, they don't know him, but he doesn't need to flirt back. Maybe the pros and cons list isn't such a bad idea. Abby understandably walks off, and Travis follows her, noting that they are on a nude beach, although the nudity doesn't apply to visitors.
What is this, OnlyFans? Fuck off!
You're a psycho!
There's then a weird and awkward segment where Travis fights a bunch of people, and it starts off with some more animation. While humorous, the animated aspects of this movie are a bit jarring and it's kinda giving the howling. This understandably leads to Abby and Travis being arrested, increasing tensions between them, as well as making Benny aware of their hiding spot. Sancho very kindly bails Travis and Abby out of jail, and when they start arguing again in front of him, Sancho gives Travis some pretty sound advice.
Yes, because she is running from you.
I get why Travis may be concerned as Abby tends to take off blindly, which is kind of dangerous to do in an unfamiliar setting. With that being said, generally wanting to separate during arguments so that you can calm down and talk civilly after is a perfectly reasonable way to address conflicts. Abby bumps into Miguel, who explains his sad backstory and that he's a priest in training, before taking Abby to church with him. Meanwhile, America gives Travis a telling off about how Abby isn't his problem to solve, before Shepley literally falls out of a tree.
Whoa. Where'd that come from?
I'm just teasing you.
Miguel then takes Abby back to the hotel, where she and Travis have a much needed and calm, might I add, chat. They decide that Travis should have a late bachelor party, so they can truly relax on their honeymoon, and Travis invites his 4 brothers to join them. While all of this is happening, there has been a dodgy subplot in which Benny's partner, Darius, has deserted him out of nowhere. Benny is trying to fix things by booking a nice place in Mexico, while also trying to find our main couple. I'm sure that this is all going to tie together at the end somehow. Abby ends up going on a spa day with America, and Travis and his family end up doing various bro activities like watching a cockfight. Shepley isn't taking the cockfighting too well at all.
You did this to your child!
Abby then goes to a women's wrestling match and agrees to fight a wrestler who is a child called Thumbelina. I knew that this movie was going to be weird from the start, but it really goes off the rails from the halfway point onward. Thumbelina is surprisingly good at wrestling, and Travis arrives just in time for the timeout to give Abby some advice. He tells her that Thumbelina tends to favour her right knee, so that's what Abby should target. Abby not only takes this advice, but completely wrecks Thumbelina, even ending with a body slam. It's a bit harsh, she's good at wrestling, but she's still just a kid. We then cut to my favourite scene in the movie, as Shepley tries to rescue the chickens and host them in his room, having entered his vegan era. Naturally, the chickens start fighting each other as Shepley struggles to reach his closet, in a sequence that's shot like a horror film. While hiding in the closet, Shepley receives a voicemail from his mother about how they're about to pull the plug on his sick grandmother, and Shepley is too frozen with fear to reach for the phone. Bit dark, innit? The girls from the beach take Travis's phone while he's at his bachelor party, and make it appear as though he's being unfaithful when Abby calls him. As a result, she drunkenly breaks into her ex-boyfriend's room, since he is also coincidentally staying in Mexico, and takes some photos while he is sleeping. She ends up actually sleeping there that night, and accidentally reverts to her sleeping toucher routine again. This time, however, it's even more awkward because Abby is making cat noises to go with her wrestling outfit, while Parker is making dog noises because... well, cats and dogs, I guess? I don't know what to tell you guys. Travis ends up walking by just as they wake up, and it does look like Abby was actually unfaithful to Travis at first glance. We cut back to the couple in marriage counselling, and Abby confesses that once she sobered up, she realised that some girls probably took his phone or something. It's probably time to stop drinking if you make such rash decisions while drunk, to be frank. Travis and Abby decide to go their separate ways, and the next day Abby spots Benny and decides to follow him. This can't end well. She attacks him, and they wrestle in the mud, but poor Benny is just trying to deliver a painting to Darius at this point. He doesn't care about those two anymore. They end up talking it out, and Benny apologises to Abby for all that he's done to her since she was a child. They then start discussing their respective relationships, and how poorly they're going, and Benny gives Abby a talking to about it all.
You think you can buy that on Amazon? You cannot.
At the same time, Travis is confronted by his brothers about fighting for Abby, and he kisses her while she's still covered in mud. In one of the worst transitions I've ever seen in this type of film, it suddenly cuts to them having another wedding ceremony. They've even invited Benny. Talk about forgiveness. The Maddox brothers gift Abby their late mother's ring, a very kind gesture to be fair to them. So, we get a happy ending for pretty much all of the couples here. Benny even ends up getting with Sancho.
You will not remember the last hour and a half of what you have just seen. You will forget the contents of this movie.
Well, where to begin with Beautiful Wedding? Fun fact about this film, Dylan Sprouse, who plays Travis Maddox, did actually get married last year to his now wife, Barbara Palvin. I guess you could say he really did have a beautiful wedding. Somehow, Beautiful Wedding actually got a theatrical release, although it was a limited one. I can't imagine what it's like to see a movie like this for the first time in theatres, so if you did watch this, or a similar movie in the cinema, feel free to enlighten me as to what it was like. I must say that this movie is completely unserious if that wasn't clear enough from my commentary. The editing for one is super dodgy. The strange misplaced animation, the title card a la YouTube Premium, the bizarre and ill-fitting dubbing in places. It's flourishes like that, if you will, that make this film all the more of a fever dream. The acting is about on par for a film like this. It's not quite at the "we know we're in a stupid movie" level of acting like in a lot of sharksploitation films, but it's clear that it's intentionally funny, much like the previous installment. I actually prefer this, as acting that's too self-aware doesn't always work in this context, and can get a bit grating. I also find the title of this film pretty ironic, as the actual wedding that kickstarts the plot has already occurred before the film even starts, and they don't redo the ceremony in a more traditional way until the very end of the film. Can films clickbait you? The drama between Benny and Darius was quite refreshing in itself, as Benny was set up as the main antagonist in the last film, and it seems like that will still be the case at the beginning of this film. However, most of the trials and tribulations that our protagonists go through are caused by themselves and have nothing to do with Benny, which is a nice way to poke fun at the tropes and melodrama that tend to accompany this genre of film. There are also quite a few terrible puns in Beautiful Wedding. One example being that Sancho initially mistook America's title and first name to mean that she won the competition, Miss America. It's an understandable mistake. So, where is this franchise headed? Considering that the original film got a sequel and that there are many other books in the Beautiful Disaster franchise, it's not unreasonable to think that a third film may be in our future. If there is one, I will probably check it out for consistency's sake. All in all, do I think that Beautiful Wedding is a good film? Not really, no. However, if you're into self-aware, cringy romance comedy films with lowbrow humour that parody the surge of sketchy rom-coms in the past decade or so, then this may be the film for you. Well, that's all for this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.
The blue and green ones are my favorite kind, but I'll eat the colored ones from time to time, 'cause polos is life, 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 polos is life. Sleep all night and then polos is life.